You're listening to Parasearch Radio. News, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch Radio or their affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised.
Good evening and welcome to the Dark Mirror Show on a Friday evening. As usual, I have the likely suspects in the studio with me. I have Mr. Mark Manley. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening.
And I have Mr. Carl Hutchinson in the shadows there. Good evening, Mark. Carl.
Yes.
God, who am I talking to?
Deep shadows. Good evening. How is everybody this evening?
I'm mighty fine, young man.
I'm good, thank you. I'm really good. So what have we been up to this week? Have we been up to anything exciting?
My daughter has started college and is going to uni.
She's going to college.
So they've been doing that. And then university. So that's been cool. Forensic science, so I've said she can help get rid of the bodies.
And Carl, you've been buying suitcases and stuff?
Oh, I've not bought suitcases yet. I've just been finalising all the bits and bobs for my New Orleans trip coming up. Got new glasses.
New Orleans.
Yeah, you got to say it a certain way because I've been told you get told off if you say New Orleans. It's got to be forget the O. It's an A.
It's all, and it's like New Orleans.
Yeah, you got to say it like that, where you get taken the mickey out of when you're at the bars. But if I'm in the French Quarter, if I'm in Bourbon Street, I'm not going to be saying where I am. I'm just going to be asking for non-alcoholic beverages.
Right. Okay.
You make me laugh.
Oh dear. Right. I have been up to something very exciting this week.
What have you been up to, Kerry?
I've been reading a fantastic book.
What is
would
it?
That be?
Would it be this book?
Yes, it's called The Book of Parasearch. I've been reading that book. Carl's got it. I want a selfie posted up on the Parasearch Radio group
We've got
page.
one on the way. We've got one on the way.
I want that up on the group page. We've got a book out. We've got a book out, everybody. Parasearch Radio have a book out.
Yeah.
All of the presenters write blogs on a regular basis. Well, we hope to write them on a regular basis. And we've actually published them into a book that you can purchase. You can go onto Amazon and it's available worldwide, guys. So go over there. Now, you know what? I've been flicking through this book. And I've, you know what? You know when you read, I've read all these blogs because obviously I do that. And then, you know what? We've written some bloody good work, you know.
Yeah, I must admit, I looked at the index because I've not had a chance to actually start flicking through yet because it arrived yesterday and I was out early this morning and I opened the Amazon pass up and obviously it was there. But I've looked through the index. There's some interesting blogs in there. I saw that Mark had done one on Bigfoot.
Yeah,
I've
right.
done two.
Yeah, and Kerry's done a load. Paul's done a few. Sam's done a couple. Penny's done a couple. So yeah. It looks an interesting read, so that's probably going to be the book I'm going to take on the plane.
Cool.
I was going to say that's your flight book. Your flight book.
Yeah.
Your flight book.
Yeah.
Is it available just in book form, or is it able to download on a reader?
It will be available to download on Kindle edition at some point. We are sorting that out as we speak, but
Good.
We do like a hard copy on Parasearch Radio. I'm not going to lie.
You do like a hard one, I know.
We do like hard copies on Parasearch Radio. Now, one thing I noticed looking through this amazing book that we've all contributed to is the eclectic topics. Yeah, eclectic. There's so much in there, so many different topics and whatnot. And that's one thing I would say that Parasearch is absolutely very, very good at, is picking different topics or coming up with not very well-known cases and, you know, mythology, you know, whatever angle we look at so many different avenues. Tonight is no different because we're looking at a case. Now, I came across this one, thought it was really interesting. It's, this beggars belief to me, and I've looked into this quite.
It is odd.
It's an odd case. It's called the Greenbrier Ghost, everybody. So, guys, what did you make of it?
Well, her name was interesting on its own.
Well, yeah, there is that. What did you make of it, though? Because it's a very bizarre case, isn't it?
Well, it's because obviously the case is based on, not based, it is an actual case. But the thing that I found very, very interesting is that obviously the lady died. She was found by a boy that helped out on their farm. Then he found her at the bottom of the stairs. He then brought in the neighbour, who then basically called the police to turn up. And it was just some of the actions of the husband, and then obviously initially went to trial. And
Andy Jones was the boy.
Yeah, and went to trial, and there's just so many intricacies on it. There's just weird stuff about it. And obviously the final outcome of when the mother of the woman that died said what she did and went back to a lawyer, and then they reopened the case and redid the trial. It's very, very strange. Very, very strange.
Mm-hmm. Now, on my little foray around net, out there in the great wilderness of internet researches, it is an incredibly interesting one, because they actually allowed this testimony to hit the court for one. But you do have to look at it in context, don't you? Because you have to look at the time and the area of this.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that I don't know if you guys will agree with me on this one or not. The one thing that got me out on this is that the lady in question who passed away, her name was Elva, which I always thought was a baby eel. Oh, was that an Elva? Elva Zona Hester Shoe. I'm not sure, but it was baby eel Zona Hester Shoe. But it was her mum, as we know, who said, I've had a dream. Her daughter came back and told her it was murder and this, that, and the other. But was it actually a dream, or was it because it was her daughter and they must have had such a close bond that that's what she wanted to happen and she dreamt it?
Right, Mark. But you got to remember,
from there,
this dream didn't happen until 2 or 3 months after the case when But no, you've got to remember this. And she thought his actions on the lead up to the case. That's the thing that I'm interested in. His bizarre, the husband who was out, allegedly being out, who then came back before the authorities turned up. His actions when they turned up. His actions at the funeral. His actions during the case. When they were doing the case. Very, very
odd. Especially
very, very
he tied that scarf around her neck. And
that was obviously when that was when she was laid out. But the first weird part of it, when she'd obviously, because everybody thought she'd fallen down the stairs because she was down at the bottom of the stairs.
They described it. I thought the name they described it in was it Everlasting Faint? And that was the older worldy term heart attack.
And then they changed that to complications with pregnancy.
That's right, yeah.
But the initial thing when I was reading the information on it is she obviously was found dead at the bottom of the stairs. So they initially thought she'd fallen down the stairs. The boy who did chores around the house went off to the neighbours. Obviously, this is a farm in 97, is it? 1897? So he had then had to go to the neighbours, which obviously at that probably time wouldn't have been like next door. It would probably be a bit away to get to them. By the time he came back with the neighbour and the authorities, the husband had then come back and had washed her, redressed her, and was in a very emotional state and was basically cuddling her neck.
Yeah, and the thing was, he wouldn't leave her neck alone or her head alone, would he? Even when she was in the coffin, he kept handling her hair.
Even when they went to the funeral home, he stayed with her at the funeral home. She was then dressed for the funeral or laying out. And the relatives and people that knew the wife noticed that She was dressed in a certain dress.
That's right.
But he had put a scarf, which people would have said wouldn't be her choice with that particular dress.
That's
but
right.
Then the husband
and
then
he kept saying, "Oh, it's her favourite."
It was a favourite, but etc. etc. Which you in grief, that's probably the facts.
Can I just say his name?
Yeah, I can't
even pronounce his name. So.
His name. We've already had her name, which was quite different enough. But his real name, he told everybody his name was Edward already, but it wasn't. His real name was Erasmus Stribling Trout Shoe, and his nickname was Trout. I'm sorry, but if my daughter came home and said, "This is Erasmus Trout," I'd be like, "That's lovely. The door's that way." Anyway, as you do.
But
back along.
People had weird names in those days.
They certainly did.
Have you heard the names now?
Yeah,
ISIS,
but they're not as meant. They're not as meant. Okay, if you call your kid Apple or whatever, that's fair enough.
Facebook, that was one.
Yeah, but these names, these are biblical names. They come from the Bible.
Yeah, that's right.
So they're oldie worldy names. So, which is like Frank. What nowadays it's all these common names like John Smith. So these names back then were probably common or garden names. But
brother-in-law was called Johnson.
It was just his actions while
very strange.
I think,
very
look at his character. But look at his character in general. He was known as a rough drifter. That I assume that means he drifted from town to town. He'd been married twice before. He would say he was after 7 wives. He would eventually have 7 wives.
But he was married twice, and both wives died under strange circumstances.
Yeah.
One was supposed to die from a broken neck when she fell from a haystack. Oh, similar. And the other wife died whilst helping Shue to repair a chimney. He was on top of the chimney, and his wife placing the rocks in a basket with a rope attached to it. And as the basket was drawn up, the basket turned and dropped the rock on the head of his wife. Strange that. That's all I'll say. Was there any life?
You got to remember when it went to it. First time went to court, and he was found because it wasn't a trial. It was like what's the word called when you investigate the death. The coroner
it's the thing
case.
my son had.
The coroner case.
No,
coroner case. And
what do you mean?
Yeah, and they were basically talking about it, and everybody just basically, and the judge and everybody just said that she died of everlasting faint, i.e. a heart attack, which is just great words, which then got changed to complications because of pregnancy. That was it.
Yeah, but
everybody went on their merry way. Went on their merry way. But her mother, who had openly admitted from day one she never liked him.
That's right.
Had her concerns. Roll on 2 or 3 months later, we then go into the weird case of the paranormal, where she then basically says she was dreaming, and her daughter came to her in her dream.
No, she wasn't dreaming. She says emphatically in the transcript that it was not a dream.
Okay.
It was like the ghost of her daughter came to her.
Okay, she went to bed.
4 nights in a row, she appeared to her mother.
Okay, let me rephrase what I was saying. She went to bed to go to sleep. She then wakes up during the night to see her daughter, who then tells her a story of how she actually died. Mm-hmm. And it was like over 5 or 6 days.
4 days in a row.
4 nights in a row.
The same dream happened, or the same visitation, whatever you want to call it. And then she went and spoke to...
I had a dream.
Exactly. I had a dream. I saw this or whatever. If you're looking in modern cases about that, you would be going into different lines of thought straight away. But she then went to a lawyer.
Yeah.
And said, hang on, this is what's happened. And then they re-looked at the case.
They also realised that the doctor who had attended had been prevented from doing a proper examination.
Yep.
So they then exhumed Zona's
Doctor Who?
body. What?
Doctor Who?
Nap.
Ah, right.
Dr.
Okay.
George
Not Doctor Who, then.
W. What is it? Dr. George W. Knapp, wasn't it?
Yeah.
A sleepy doctor.
So
Very sleepy doctor.
Oh, sorry, that tickled me.
I'm sorry, I'm on the ball tonight. No aliens! Aliens! No aliens at all
No
tonight.
aliens in this tonight, guys.
Definitely this.
Have been actually stopped from doing a proper examination. So they ordered the body of Zona to be exhumed. And then they performed oh, God, I can't speak. You two fill in the gap, say, autopsy. They then performed an autopsy. Autopsy. God, what is wrong with me tonight? Put my teeth in.
See, okay. Taps. Is that where dead taps go to die? I don't know.
Yeah, carry on, guys. You're doing a better job than I am.
Okay, well, I think what Kerry was trying to say, the doctor or the name did an autopsy.
Thank you.
They exhumed the body. There's another big word for you, Kerry. They exhumed the body and then did an autopsy to look at the reasons why. That's when they found out, Mark.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hang on. Sorry, I was trying to sort through all my pages then because that messed up. Right. It was because I had it on down here. Here we are. Right. The findings of it were actually damning to shew. I know there was an independent report done in March that said, and I quote directly from the report, the discovery was made that the neck was broken and the windpipe mashed. On the throat were the marks of fingers indicating that she had been choken. Okay, well, choken, as in choked, not choked the chicken, but choked. The neck was dislocated between the first and second vertebrae, which, for those of you who don't know, when you get dislocation, they say instant death. And the ligaments were torn and ruptured. The windpipes had been crushed at a point in front of the neck. So basically what that means is where she was strangled by her husband, he also shoved his thumbs into the windpipe at the same time. And it must have been at the top. And when he'd done the dirty deed and dislocated the neck, he just chucked it downstairs.
Lovely. Nice guy then, right?
Lovely. He's done it to two other wives previously. One, he dropped a rock on the head and went, it fell. And the other one, she fell. And this is wife number 3. And I've told, to be fair, if the authorities had looked into it properly, they would have gone, I think I could see a pattern here, yeah. So,
I kind of think maybe they had sort of started to realise at this point that he is that kind of character.
I don't think they would have done, because back in those days, particularly where they are, the New Frontier and everything like that, these other cases weren't in the same area. And at those
it was out there jurisdiction.
At those times, you wouldn't have had the law enforcement, because each of the things that have their own law enforcement, their own judges, their own sheriffs, and all this sort of stuff. So they wouldn't have the links that we have nowadays, where they can link out on any of your crimes anywhere in the world. So I don't think they would have picked up on that until probably after the fact, and it probably was after the fact, because there's rumours going round afterwards, we're jumping ahead slightly, but he was basically said, people were saying that the reason he killed her was that he came back and thought she hadn't prepared dinner. And flipped out.
It was very Puritan back then as well.
Yeah, exactly.
The frontier was very Puritan. And also, they didn't have access to the internet. The only internet they had then was carrier pigeon. So, it stops the naps and things.
It's very difficult, particularly when you look at America. I think even in this day and age, isn't it? There's problems with cross jurisdiction. Even nowadays,
that's right.
There?
Yeah, they have all the different police, don't they? You've got like the town police, the state police, the federal police. I can't even keep up with it.
The DA office.
I don't know what all the different old. Yeah. Over here, we just have the police, and they can we come over? Yeah, you can, and that's it. But over there, carrier pigeon to one place.
America's always been the same. They've got like nowadays you have a sheriff in a town, and they have sheriffs and deputy sheriffs,
And rangers.
And then you have obviously like park rangers and stuff like that. But then you go on to motorways, and then you have the highway patrol. Then you have the police of the area. Then you have the state police.
That's it. State police.
And then you have you go into the realms of the FBI and all the different government agencies which have the same rights and laws of the police in the country. But you're right, in this country you have the police.
That's it. And they just say, can I come over to your county? And they go, yeah, and that's it. Can I tell you a very quick story about a Texas Ranger? Whilst I know it's off topic, but I think you'll like this, and our listeners might appreciate it. Is that okay, Kerry?
Go.
Kerry?
Go.
Oh, thank you, Kerry. You love me. Right. Yes. Remember Walker, Texas Ranger, yeah?
Who?
Do you remember Walker, Texas Ranger?
Is this a real Ranger? We're not talking about...
No, the program, Walker, Texas Ranger.
Yeah. I know Walker, Texas Ranger, which is a TV program.
Right. Who played Walker?
That was the what's his name? Chuck Norris.
That's it. Right. Well, the real Chuck Norris was in Texas one day, and he was walking, and it actually the plates, and he was walking. It was before he made mayor, and he was walking down this street, and 3 guys saw him and decided they were going to jump him and mug him. And this is true because I've seen a newspaper article about it and everything. So they decided to jump him, mug him. And these were big guys, and a couple of them had just come out of prison. Like 2 of them towered over him. Long story short, when the local police arrived at the scene because they'd been called, they arrived to find the 3 guys on the floor, another 2 guys who'd been their friends as backup on the floor. One of them had a green stick fracture of the leg. Another one had his arm facing the wrong way. And when the police had actually stopped laughing, because when they saw who they tried to mug, they just literally stood there and fell about laughing. When they got these guys and said, what on earth possessed you to try and mug him, they turned round, and I kid you not, the lead one turned around and said, well, we all guessed it was just, it was on TV, and it was just all for show. And Chuck Norris was just lent there like, yeah. And that made headline news and everything, and I just thought that was brilliant. Yeah. Tried to mug a world karate champion 8 times over. Yeah.
Although I don't think in this instance with the Greenbrier Ghost, the sheriff, and that was that kind of guy, really.
No.
But he probably wanted a cigar, a nap, and maybe a Mormon. I don't know, but that was about it.
But going on, obviously, you got people like what Mark's saying that have gone into law enforcement. There's quite a few action heroes who have come from
a Luther Ringer's just been made a deputy sheriff, hasn't he?
Yeah, from a fighting background that have gone into law enforcement. So that's just the American way and all that sort of stuff. But at least at that time, 9 times out of 10, the people like the sheriff in those days, in like 18 whatever,
boys, were
either normally gunslingers, so they were literally good with a gun, and that was it. Or they were people who were respected businessmen, so landowners and everything like that, and they had money to hire posses and deputies and etc.
Money to hire what?
Deputies.
Oh no, money to hire
posses.
Oh, posses. Posses, right? I just thought he was bragging again. I don't know, but carry on.
Tumbleweeds.
I think I've just walked down the street.
He is going to New Orleans, you know.
So anyway, back to the Greenbrier Ghost.
New Orleans is in the South, Mark.
So they've dug her up. I'm going back to topic. I'm going to stick to topic. Right.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
They found out that basically she got choked, and then they've gone back to court with this, right?
No. The findings were then given out as public in the newspaper. Then he was then arrested.
It actually upset a lot of members of the local community. And he went, kill him, basically. So and he was arrested.
Yeah. And it was at this point that her mum, Mary Jane, was put on the stand about the ghostly visits?
No, not yet.
Ooh, tell me more then, boys.
So obviously he was then arrested. He was taken to a jail in Lewisburg, where he was indicted by a grand jury. And during the trial, that is when the mother took the stand and said that her daughter had visited her and told her that he had killed her and explained how he'd killed her, etc. And that was then used as evidence to convict the husband.
He was actually convicted of murder on circumstantial evidence and not because of the because of the testimony of his mother.
Circumstantial evidence was the testimony from the mother,
which caused
you can't use the testimony of his mother as evidence. It has to be circumstantial.
Do you think that the mum was so determined to get him convicted that she made that up?
I have a different view on that.
Okay.
Now I'm going to go completely off the reservation with this one.
It's a Dark Mirror show. You have to.
I'm going off reservation, which is quite good for the area and the time we're talking about.
God!
We're bracing ourselves for this.
Yeah, I was just waiting for the penny to drop there. But no, my thoughts on it is obviously she's then said, "I was visited. My daughter told me how she died, broken neck, etc., which were the facts. When they exhumed the body, they did the autopsy, etc. If you kind of flip it, potentially she knew too much. If you're taking out that the daughter didn't visit her, taking out the paranormal, how did she know? Could it have been that she had other information? Could she have been involved and she was trying to put it onto the husband?
I only have a couple of things to go against that, and that's why did she do a specific 4 days? And also, from my background, to actually crush somebody's windpipe and dislocate the neck, you've got to have a bit of strength behind you. You can't be somebody's, to point of fact, little old mum. Unless she was built like Arnie.
You don't know she was a little old mum. They were tough old birds. We're talking the Wild West.
Wait, what are you on about?
We're talking the Wild West here. We're not talking little old lady down living in a flat in Streatham or whatever. We're talking people that have survived hardship, living off the land, fighting against the Indians, fighting against this, that, and the other, cholera, all these sort of things. They're not going to be. We're not talking. I'm not talking about a little frail old lady. We don't know this because there's no information that I could find.
But to cause cervical dislocation like that, I know myself, it takes a lot.
I'm sorry, Mark, I disagree with that because there are several modern day cases of females doing exactly the same.
Wow.
This is modern day.
The chat room is alive and kicking out there. So good evening, chat room. Thank you for joining us. You have a good deduction there, Carl, from Mr. Richard Clements.
Thank you.
Exactly. I will say, as you said, how the hell did you know it was that?
Yeah. Well, it is a strange case. Whatever way you look at it, it is a strange case. And take the paranormal thing out. He was going to be convicted anyway, I think. I think that was said. Was it done then as the prosecution to try and discredit the case? Were they trying to discredit the case by bringing the ghost story up?
I think a lot of it, because of the fact that there was a foiled lynching attempt on him a few days later, I think it would have been done and dusted and signed and sealed that he'd done it and he was going to prison.
I've got another scenario. You go back, you look at the time period, 1897. Yep. You look at West Virginia, where it was. You look at
born and raised
the morals of those particular people. They would be very bold. They would be very
Waker shakerish.
Beliefs And you look at a scenario, go back to the witch trials in Salem. That's not that far away.
And unfortunately, religion has a lot to do with ostracizing people.
If it was a modern day case, yeah, I completely agree. You would disagree. You wouldn't even bring that up. But
may I point one thing out about her husband? Because you were saying, like, about the mum might have done it. He was a blacksmith, so he was going to be a fairly strong built bloke. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, but you're still saying,
his two previous wives died.
Mark, you're still holding or pinning your evidence and your things. So you're saying that a woman couldn't have done the crime. I'm sorry, women can commit murder in that way.
No, I didn't say they couldn't. I said to do cervical dislocation, you got to be fairly strong to do that.
If she was unconscious already, if she'd have fallen down the stairs, they'd had an argument. She fell down the stairs. They can't.
I'm not sure. I will sit on the fence on this one.
There's no medical. Look, I've looked at the autopsy, and they can see that it was a broken. They can see this, but they haven't got the science that we have now. So there could have been hematomas in the head from a fall or whatever. You can't. There's no information on that. So
where did the mum live? Was it with them or was it elsewhere?
No, it was elsewhere.
In the town.
That's right.
In the town.
Okay.
But I think it comes down. I think the whole using or having the prosecution use the mother's testimony of, I was visited for 4 nights by my daughter who told me this, and I was murdered. I had my neck broken, etc., etc. At that time, people would have gone uproar, as they did. They tried to lynch the guy before he went to trial.
3 days afterwards.
After the trial, sorry. And they were going to lynch him because of the uproar. And I think you've got to remember the religious bases around those times. It's completely different now.
But I do think with any case we look at, or any story we look at, or whatever point of history, you do have to put yourself in the time frame, don't you? It's very easy to forget the time frame of, put it in that perspective.
He had a history of domestic abuse and domestic violence.
We've already said that, Mark. At that time, for that case, they probably wouldn't have had that information because it was in different states.
It may have been different states, but he still did.
He still did it, but he could have committed 2 murders. He might not have committed a 3rd one.
It's interesting, though.
There is a grey area with the mum saying she appeared to me for 4 days straight and stated this, and this, and that he was annoyed with me because I didn't cook meat on that day when he came home. But can I just say one interesting thing about how he died?
Yeah, carry on.
He went to prison. He was sentenced to prison for life, but he wasn't sentenced to execution. He was just sentenced to life in prison. But he actually died from complications from measles and pneumonia.
Oh,
so he died very, very spotty and coughing. So a bit like this coronavirus, or as I like to call it, kung flu.
Well, that does seem to be a bit of scaremongering that's going on about that one at the moment. Anyway, It is interesting though that they allowed that. What's the word for it? That paranormal experience that the mum had in court. That is very unusual, isn't it?
But it's as Carl said, back then they were God-fearing and Bible bashing and
it's God, devil. It's good and evil. It's like
yeah. They would.
Yeah. It's like 1897. It's not that long. If you go back a few hundred years, you're going back about the Salem witch trials. And if that was because somebody looked at them funny, they're a witch.
Yeah.
And 9 out of 10 of those trials, they were always reported by the alderman of the town.
Yeah, exactly.
It was nearly always the alderman who had a beef with them.
Because obviously you look at the Salem witch trials, one of the most renowned persons in the Salem witch trials was accused because one of the witch trial people was one of the wealthiest landowners in the area, because her husband had died. and she inherited the land. And this guy who accused her, wanted her land.
Yeah.
And the witch trials, as we all know, was a complete travesty and was a complete murder of a lot of innocent women.
Exactly.
That's right. It was.
And you look at the court system, probably had...
But it was sanctioned murder because of religion.
But it was basically from evidence that one person said.
No, exactly. And it was evidence that we all know was, oh, she looked at me and my wife turned into a cat. Stuff like that.
But this case, the Greenbrier Ghost, really does. They go, oh, it's the only court case that a paranormal experience has been, used as evidence against a person, and the person then got convicted. But when you look deeper into this case, it is interesting because it isn't quite as the title suggests, is it? And they've said that this is the only one. We've already named another witch, the witch trials. They were in a court of law, about, so those trials are about the paranormal, aren't they? You're a witch, you turned, milk sour, you did this, you did that. So it's not unknown of back in this day and age for this kind of thing to hit a courtroom, right?
No,
I know,
exactly.
but those trials, they were damned from the start, so you can't really...
But we, from now's point of view, we can see that it was. Back then, it was just... That was how the trial system worked.
Well, back then, they didn't have the people from the Dark Mirror show. They didn't have you or myself or Kerry, because we would have gone in and just ghostbusted all of them and said, no, behave yourself.
We would have been on trial as well.
And there is but there is a more recent case where a person was taken to court and gone to prison because of something she received in a seance, and it was Helen Duncan Smith. She got convicted, didn't she, because of information she was receiving regarding the war. And they said, no, you can't do that, and convicted her and put her in prison.
You're absolutely spot on. That was the last witch trial, wasn't it? Last witch trial in the UK. Yeah,
they changed the witchcraft laws because of that, didn't they? But, so the headline of this case, now that's what interested me about this, was because it was all like, the only court case that's ever been in America that's a ghost testimony convicted a murderer in a court of law. It's not quite as clear-cut as that when you look into it. It is a fascinating case, and it is interesting that her experience was allowed to be said in court.
See, I'd love to invent a time machine and be like a lot of people have said, and just obviously dress for the period and go back, sit in the back of the courtroom, just have a listen. And then if you've got that said time machine, you could walk yourself backwards and forwards and do a bit of investigating yourself and then go, I know why you did it. And like Judge Jeffreys, the hanging judge who hung all the witches, especially the ones from the Assizes of Essex over here in our witch trials, I'd love to know how much he got paid and who by, and a lot of people would. But it'd be so interesting to find all this out and debunk so much stuff, I think.
It is fascinating, I have to say, because
I'd like to save a lot of them.
I'm going to share an article into the chat room which details this and actually looks at it with a more critical eye. And I think that's the other thing we have to do when we look at cases, is actually look at cases like this with a very critical eye. And is it as the headlines suggest in regards to this one? Now, this is a paper, or I say a paper, an online forum that I follow. I enjoy this forum very lot. It's skeptoid.com. So go check it out because it's full of really interesting information. It is skeptical, but they do a lot of research into the back of it and does cover the Greenbrier case.
What's it called again for everybody who didn't hear it? Skeptoid.com.
Brian Dunning writes a lot for these. And he looked into this and he said that the day that her death was first published, another case that was in Australia was actually on the same page, and he believes that this is where the mother got the idea for saying that her daughter came to her as a ghost.
Very interesting. Very interesting indeed.
It is incredibly interesting. So I'm going to share that into the chat room. So it's worth a look at, because it is something that we have to be very aware of in the paranormal, isn't it? To look at it, although we are believers, otherwise we might as well give up the ghost and disappear into the ether of the paranormal world. We do have to keep a very sceptical mind on things, a critical thinking mind.
Yes, he did there.
Oh, see. So I've shared that into the chat room because it is very interesting. But unless you were there, we really don't know, do we? She may well have had a visitation from her daughter. And it may well have been, she might have been complicit in it. Like you say, some of the details she came out with may indicate that she was there and was more involved than previously thought, perhaps. Who knows?
Yes. But exactly. Obviously, it was used. It was one of the, and he was convicted over, it was circumstantial evidence. So they obviously worded it that way because they couldn't obviously say this, that, and the other. But there are cases, like modern day cases, where mediums have helped locate bodies.
Mm-hmm. We're going to look at that next week, though, aren't we?
Yeah, which we are. But there are cases.
We are indeed.
And that has then gone to court, etc. So
I've got to say. So, no, you carry on. I'll wait for you to finish, big man, and then I'll start.
I did finish.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, what you were talking about mediums and things like that and the papers and stuff. The TV series Medium was based on the real-life medium herself, wasn't it? Alison Dubois.
I don't remember. I've never seen the TV series. So.
You're talking about the Ghost Whisperer.
The Ghost Whisperer.
Oh, yeah, over in the... No. Different program. No, not the Ghost Whisperer. Medium.
It's actually called Medium.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of her name. She's got a famous sister. Flipping heck. What's her flipping name?
I've not seen. I've seen the Ghost Whisperer.
I don't know.
I've seen the Ghost Whisperer, but I've not seen Medium.
It's based on Alison Dubois, and she helped the police and the FBI and this. Patricia Arquette, that's it, Rosanna Arquette's sister. She played the lead role. She played Dubois, and actually very interesting series because it's all based on her journals and her notes and her diaries and everything. Very good, and it's based on real things that happen. It's definitely worth having a look at. If you've got, if you're bored and you've got a few spare hours, binge watch it. Definitely.
So, what do we think? Do we then think that supernatural occurrences might lead to a conviction should be brought into the courtroom at all? Forget the lead up to it. We're going to look at the investigation side of it next week. But actually in the courtroom, do we think that should be referenced at all or talked about at all in the courtroom? Because I personally don't think it should be. It should be based on hardcore evidence.
Let Carl go first because I'm always talking over top of everyone and I don't mean to. Carl, you go first and then I'll speak.
That's a tough one because as we've discussed on a few shows and we kind of looked at it last night on the show on Thursday night. This industry, the paranormal, is a pseudoscience, unproven. You can't there's nothing tangible can prove it. So can you bring something that is an unproven science as evidence in a court of law in modern times? Me personally, I don't think you can. Until we can prove, without a doubt, 100%, what we are, everybody in the industry experiencing, their personal experiences, what we do it on a day by day basis, what we do at our spare time, everything this, until they can prove it, I personally don't think you can bring in either a defence or a prosecution using the paranormal. That's my own personal opinion.
No, I agree on that quite a lot. But what I was going to say is, from my own point of view, is if you've got somebody who says, "Oh, I saw this, and this, such and such came and spoke to me," blah 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 blah. If what they say was said to them doesn't lead to any evidence or anything, no. If you have a medium or anything come forward and say this, that, and the other, and it's nobody related to the case, nobody related to anything to do with the case, and what they say actually does lead to tangible, really good evidence to do with that particular case, then I don't see why that can't be admissible. But if it's a close family member or anybody related to the case, it could be just no. But I think if it's not anyone related to the case. And it's like, you know, one of these mediums that has a shop or is famous or this, that, and the other. Somebody not related to the case, and whatever they say leads investigators to find stupidly hard evidence. I don't see why that can't be not them per se, but the evidence could be.
Which I agree with you, Mark, on that front. But I think in modern day, because I'm sorry, but the way prosecution and defence counsel work
I agree
nowadays,
with that.
you stand on the stand and say, well, I went into a trance and I saw the body and I saw a red BMW driving away. The guy smelled of cigarette smoke and he had a squint in his left eye. And funny enough, they arrest the guy and he's got a red BMW, he's got a squint in his eye and he stinks of cigarette smoke. The prosecution are going to go, yeah, right. Or the defence are going to go, yeah, right.
No, and that I agree with.
Because they'll get laughed out of court. They'll get laughed out of court, and that's why they don't use it.
Yeah.
Because it says in the law it has to lead to hard evidence. And that's what we'll be talking about next week.
Even if it is hard evidence, because even if it is hard evidence, there's cases where mediums have found bodies. Yeah.
Levelance.
Evidence.
There you go.
What?
Well,
I don't know what Kerry's doing, but please stop it. You're putting me off my words.
Sorry, scratching. Have a little scratch there.
There has been cases, which we'll look at next week, of mediums finding bodies, saying they saw this car, that has then got the police being able to find the car and then convicted the guy because of other evidence they have then found. But it's never been mentioned in court that the medium told me, because it would be laughed out of court.
It's not. What the things that I've looked at, I don't want to say too much because it's for next week, but the things that I've looked at, I've only looked at certain ones that have led to real, irrefutable, hard evidence.
Which I agree with, Mark. That's what I've just said. But when it's in court, they won't mention it was found by a medium.
I don't think
they could say it was found by a large, or maybe a small. I don't know.
Yeah, but they won't do that. They won't do that. They will say, we found evidence that this person was driving this vehicle on this. He has links to this. He has links to that. He has links to this. They'll give them tangible, like Terry said, tangible evidence, and they will convict him on that. They won't convict him on testimony of a medium because they will get laughed out of court.
Yeah, like going back to the Greenbrier Ghost, the chances are he was going to be convicted anyway. There's no suggestion that her visitation swayed the jury at all. There's no evidence that it swayed the jury. The chances are, and I would say 100% sure, he was going to get convicted. I actually think that that was brought up in court to try and discredit the case to get him off. Is actually why I think they allowed that. To get him off the crime. You know, look at the wackos around him. Like, you know, this is what this person says.
It is still unusual that he has a history of domestic violence and 2 previous wives who died in strange circumstances.
Mark,
all I'm saying, just putting it out
in those days, they wouldn't have known that information. It's not a modern case.
Yeah, but in those days, walk past and look at me funny, and they'd be like, "Oh, it's a familiar."
Yeah, but no, Mark, you've got to remember, in those days, they wouldn't have been able to link it. We're talking about
had very hard pigeons.
1897. We're not talking about 2020.
The problem is with the supernatural, it's very easy, I think, for somebody to try and, I mean, Carl, you sent a case through that linked to somebody saying that they weren't mentally disturbed. They committed a crime. They weren't actually mentally disturbed, but that not an alien. Sorry, wrong show. A demon or a negative entity Satan had influenced his behaviour. So it took the responsibility off the person and put it on an external supernatural force. It's got thrown out of court. It didn't stand up in court. But isn't it? It's a very it's a very dangerous charge to then bring the supernatural in, because like you say, we can't prove anything. We can't prove any of this. Then try and push a court case on the fact that somebody's not actually mentally unstable, that it's an entity that's making them do that, is very, very dodgy in the first place, isn't it?
Absolutely.
What about the case of the entity, as in the film? Because that was a real case. It didn't go to court, obviously, but that was a real case, and that was a supernatural force, and it was documented.
Yeah. Of Doris Bither you're talking about. I was actually thinking...
We need to do a show on that in the future. We need to do a show on that in the future.
We've done one, Mark. We have actually done that show.
We need to do another one. We didn't have Charles Beard back then, so we need to do it now.
We did do that. But I was thinking more of the Amityville, where Defoe had gone in, killed a load of people, and then afterwards they were saying it's haunted. But they were saying...
And recently, yeah.
But they were saying that Defoe was actually... The house itself was the reason why he did that crime, not that he's a arranged psychopathic murderer. And that, you know, so even in that case, they tried to pin it on a supernatural when it really wasn't. It was probably the fact that he was just a psychopathic murderer. And then afterwards, the myth then reestablishes itself, doesn't it? Well, he did it because of this. But maybe he didn't. Maybe he was just psychopathic murderer. Do you know what I mean? But carry on.
He was.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right, Kerry, because your case for... I think you've got to look at it for what's going to happen to them when they're convicted of the crime. So if they can produce evidence of mentally unstable or they're not in their right mind, which is a part of the law, you have a lesser sentence. You are then sentenced to, say...
not a sound mind,
psychiatric hospital for the mentally insane, like you go to Broadmoor or something like that. Where the Craig went, Sutcliffe's there, and all that sort of stuff. So if your defence is going to say, right, okay, we're going to try this Hail Mary path, and say try and bring into evidence that he's being told by the house to kill people, because they're thinking if we can get that, even if that's in the jury's mind, they could come back as he wasn't in his right mind when he committed the crime, but he still committed the crime. We're going to give him a lesser sentence instead of giving him, in America, they say the death penalty, or giving him...
That's it.
Whatever.
Sound, mind and body.
Exactly.
Yeah. Sound, mind and body.
Which is a defence both in the UK, well, all around the world. Sane mind.
We've got
sound mind. Yeah, exactly. So if you can prove that, because we can't prove that the house was telling him to kill, but we can put a doubt in the juries, because that's all it's about, because you have to be convicted by your peers and you have to be convicted by a majority. If you can convince or put a doubt in 4 jurors' minds, you aren't going to be convicted. You aren't going to be then convicted. You then have to be asked again, and then you then go again, and then you come to the conclusion that it's not sound mind and all that lot.
Diminished responsibility.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there's those plays modern day do get used.
Mm-hmm.
It does, and there's a lot of cases of that in the 70s, 80s, 90s, but where it's been proved recently that it was actually people influencing the jury and paying them off or threatening to kill the families and this, that, and the other. So it doesn't. All this a trial by a jury of your peers, 12 good men and true. A load of this. It nowadays it's. Well, back then it was rubbish because they could be paid off, they could be they could be told to say this, that, and the other for a substantial amount of money.
Sometimes back in the days, we're talking about the Greenbrier Ghost. Probably even some of those juries,
Bible bashing.
It wouldn't have been a jury. It would have been the judge.
Mm.
It'd be a judge and a couple of horses and maybe a donkey as well. I don't know.
So do you think then, going back to this case in 1897, that the belief system and the fear of God kind of thing would have, that suggestion that, oh, she came back, it's, it's got to be him.
Yeah.
Do you think that would have influenced their decision at all?
Yeah.
Very highly
absolutely.
so.
Absolutely.
Because we did see that in the Salem witch trials as well, didn't we?
Exactly.
The fear-godding, the God-fearing people even, it was like, oh, awful that we've got Satan amongst us, and repent and all that.
There's a famous case, the one with the hatchet, hit 40 whacks. Oh, what's her name? She killed her father, killed her mother.
Not Lizzie Borden.
Lizzie Borden.
Was it Lizzie Borden? Oh,
yeah,
Blimey, I was right.
Lizzie Borden case.
So surprised.
I know people who have taken the transcripts of the original case and then basically reenacted the trial with a jury using modern way of doing the case, and redone the trial.
Yeah.
There's a couple of cases that do it, and I think one that I did know.
They make some plays out of it. Well,
yeah, exactly. They don't plays, but I'm talking about actually taking the evidence, taking the transcripts of the trial, so the prosecution and the defence would actually speak the words of the prosecution and the defence at that time, their words, and redo it in a modern way, and they get a different verdict.
One part, that's it.
And they get a different verdict.
Yeah.
But back in the day...
As you say, back then, it was a God-fearing community.
Yeah, it's all about faith beliefs then. It's all about faith.
And that particular area still comes under the Bible Belt in America, doesn't it? Because there's that one bit that is the Bible Belt of America.
West Virginia.
No offense to anybody in America listening, but you are a little bit religious.
But you got to remember that was the way they went when they were going out. When they decided, get the wagons and you just race and find a bit.
Wagons roll.
Exactly. Find a bit of land in the middle of nowhere.
Form a circle. Look. I said there's an engine over there.
Exactly.
On that note, we have actually come to the end of the show. Now, if you want to hear more from my lovely Carl, he will be live on the Parasearch Radio group page tomorrow. At what time, Carl?
7 p.m.
And we can ask you just about anything we ever want to?
Yeah, I've not put it out. Anything you want to know, whether it's paranormal, whether you want some advice, you want to ask me anything about the paranormal, about equipment or my experiences, what I've done in investigations, tips, tricks, what I do, my beliefs. You've got a free rein to ask me absolutely everything. Because if nobody asks me a question, I'm just going to do a tap dance and sit here and stick 2 pencils.
A naked tap dance with nipple tassels, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. And ask him about tech. This guy does nothing he doesn't know about tech. So if you've got a question about tech, ask him, because I trust him about that.
It's your opportunity, obviously, to ask me anything. And then just for another plug, on Monday night, if anybody is up, I'm being interviewed. I'm on Jay and Teresa over in the States. So you can listen. I posted it into the chat room, the pages earlier in the Parasearch Radio pages. So if you get a chance and you're up night and you can't sleep, you can listen to that as well. While I get to have a conversation with Teresa and Jay.
Go for it. You know what time that is in UK time?
It's 8:00 EST, so that's East Central Time. So UK time is going to be probably about 2 a.m., 3 a.m.
I thought it'd be about 12. I thought it was
4
hours.
Is it 4 hours?
I thought it was 4 hours.
To be truthfully honest,
it's about midnight, everybody. We reckon around midnight.
It's about midnight. I am going to be posting tomorrow both pages again, the Q&A at 7 p.m. and also that and giving the exact time. So
cool. If you miss any of our shows, we are across multiple platforms and you can listen back on podcast. So go over there, check us out. If you don't listen live, you can check us out. All the Parasearch Radio all the Parasearch Radio shows are on multiple platforms. But the main one is YouTube. And when you go over to our YouTube channel, don't forget to click, share and subscribe. And don't forget, go over to amazon.co.uk or .com and you can find the Book of Parasearch. On that note,
you need to do this.
We bid you all a very farewell even. Oh my God, what is wrong with me tonight?
Farewell?
I don't even know what's right. I don't know. Anyway, say good night, guys.
Adios, and I will see you soon.
Mark?
I don't know. Take it easy, take care, and watch out for the Kung Flu. See you later, guys.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.